You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Coffee with Graeme on AETi Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. This edition of Coffee with Graeme is brought to you by Evolve Green, AETi, TOVI Hockey, Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, and Caisse Financial Group. In today's episode, we're going to have two guests joining the show. One of the guests right now, he was supposed to be joining me first. It's Ferdi Nelissen to talk about the Western Regional Women's U18 Championships that are going to be played in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba. 4 provinces will be in action starting today. It's going to be Team Manitoba, Team Saskatchewan, Team Alberta, and Team BC. For some reason, Ferdi has not answered me back yet. So what we're going to do first is, after the intro, we're going to bring on Cody Wall. He's also going to be joining the show today in a pre-recorded segment of Off the Wall with Cody to break down the past weekend of games we saw here on the network between the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy U18 Male Prep Buffaloes and the Notre Dame Hounds. Both those teams were in action twice against each other this past weekend. But yeah, going to be a great show today, no matter what, no matter if we have Ferdi coming on or not. So stay tuned after the intro of the show. Coffee with Graeme for Cody Wall here on Off the Wall with Cody on Coffee with Graeme on AETi Productions. Well, gotta love the new intro, updated intro I just saw from the Coffee with Graeme intro that just played. Also, not the same music, changed up the song. I gotta say, I like it. That was my first time hearing it. Yeah, gonna be awesome to use that every time we do this show now going forward. But yeah, Off the Wall with Cody this week with Cody Wall, AETi Productions color commentator. Gonna be talking, like I said in the intro of this episode, about just the past weekend of games we saw here on the network. Cody's going to come on to break them down, and as well as talk about some other stuff that happened this past weekend in those 2 games here on this first segment of today's edition of Coffee with Graeme, Off the Wall with Cody, here with Cody Wall, AETi Productions color commentator. Another week, another edition of Off the Wall with Cody, with AETi color commentator Cody Wall joining me here on this Tuesday morning edition of the show. Cody, busy weekend for us here on the network. This past weekend covering those 2 games between the U18 Male Prep Buffaloes and the Notre Dame Hounds. Of course, we'll get into that in just a moment here, but just gotta ask you, how you doing on this Monday night, since the segment is being pre-recorded once again?
Yeah, it's a great day. It was a good day today, and thanks for having me on again today, Graeme. Look forward to breaking down this past weekend of the U18 Buffalo versus Notre Dame Hounds.
Yeah, for sure. Always nice to have you on, man. I mean, it is your segment, so I should be thanking you for coming on the show here. But let's get down to it. Pilot-Mound suffering 2 losses this weekend to Notre Dame. The first game of the weekend for them, however, being a close one. They even held the lead at one point in that game. That ended up being an 8-5 win for the Hounds on Saturday. Just talking about that matchup that we saw on Saturday. How impressed were you? Like we talked about it during the broadcast. How impressed are you looking back at it now, today, at that first period that Pilot-Mound had to get things rolling in that first game to be up 3-2 going into the second?
Well, never having watched those U15 Notre Dame Hounds, I wasn't sure what to expect. So just kind of going off of, we had noticed that they, prior to this weekend, Pilot-Mound, they had won one versus the Hounds, but they had also they had gotten beaten substantially in one of the other meetings. So we had talked on the way to the game. We weren't sure what to expect, but in that first game, we definitely saw a hungry Pilot-Mound team right from the get go. They were on every puck early in that first period and managed to put the pressure on on Notre Dame and managed to, like you said, have a couple leads throughout that game.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's what impressed me the most is how Pilot-Mound came out and started off that game. And we've talked about it so much as just this U15 male prep program's resiliency. Them being resilient, just looking back at it, a prime example, them losing that first game of the season in regular season action in the CSSHL to Notre Dame 17-4 and coming out the next day, winning 4-3 at that point. Last weekend on Friday before these past weekend of games, Pilot-Mound lost 16-0 to the Rink. Just to see them come out and have this type of effort in that first game after getting smoked, as the scoreboard said, 16-0, just gotta continue to be impressed with this Pilot-Mound team's resiliency for the U15 group here.
Definitely, I can only guess that they really didn't that game on Friday with versus the Rink really didn't sit well with them, or wouldn't have sat well with them, and kind of would have sparked them to have that fast start on Saturday against the Hounds. And we had seen it; they had come out flying. They were led by some of their notable players were Liam Chartrand, Bo Murray, and on the back end, both Gage Sutherland and Carson Carrolls were, dominant forces for Pilot-Mound and able to, when adversity came, able to battle it in those first two periods.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into Gage Sutherland and Carson Carrolls real quick here. Just looking at them, they're terrific skaters, great passers, can move the puck up the ice, can even produce some offense out there as well, as it's been documented throughout the season so far this year. But one thing that stands out to me is how they always seem to know where each other are on the ice, and I'm pretty sure you alluded to that during the broadcast. Just from what we've seen so far, and especially from this past weekend, what impressed you the most about that deep pairing of Carrolls and Sutherland?
Well, when the team was kind of scrambling, those two guys were able to settle down the game and be able to make a good, clean, crisp passes either to each other to create a little extra time to wait for a play to develop, or they would find their forwards after taking a hit or taking an extra second and holding the puck, waiting for a guy to get open and sacrificing themselves a bit to make the play, and that's something that they've both kind of done. They're not big players by no means, either Carson or Gage, but they definitely know where to go. And especially when you watch those two on the power play, it's their ability to find each other, like you had mentioned, Graham, is especially dynamic on the power play. The way they can cycle the puck.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked about how they're not the biggest guys. Well, Gage Sutherland had a pretty big boy hit against, I believe it was Aiden Pym in that second game. Just a monstrous hit, of course. Wishing Aiden Pym the best. I know that he wasn't looking right after that hit after he suffered it, but hopefully he's back and playing for this Notre Dame team as the season goes along and as their next games go along. But talking about Notre Dame in that first matchup of the weekend, they battled back and ended up getting the win. Ending up winning that game 8-5 against Pilot-Mound. What impressed you the most about Notre Dame as that game went along in terms of them getting the W?
Yeah, I know we've mentioned how Pilot-Mound had a lot. We liked their tenacity. I also liked Notre Dame's, their ability to not quit. You had talked to James McGuigan before the second game and kind of asked him about, what he had said to the boys in that after that first period when they were down 3-2. After that late goal in the first period in the first game, he had kind of said that he went in there and he challenged the guys that that wasn't really their best effort, and they definitely came out stronger in the second and yet more in the third, and they just kind of built on each period as it came. It didn't look like they really dwelled on their mistakes. It looked like anytime something did happen that maybe didn't go their way, it didn't look like they got too far away from what got them, what makes them so successful. They didn't get too far away from that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the message was received from the players, that message given by head coach of the Notre Dame Hounds, James McGuigan, coming out and winning that second game on Halloween morning on Sunday, 10-0 against the Pilot-Mound U15 male prep Buffaloes, talking about Notre Dame's performance. It just seemed like they were ready to go and turn it up a couple notches right when that puck dropped.
Yeah, right when that puck dropped, they kind of just built off of that strong third period where they really did shut down Pilot-Mound on that Saturday night game. And yeah, like you had mentioned, right from that first face-off, we saw newcomer Joby Baumüller come out off the opening face-off and register a shot on Pete Moreau early on in that first period. And it just felt like the whole team kind of had that same mentality, that it was just that come out with a fire under you to get the game rolling, and they just never took their foot off the accelerator pedal on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think the score was pretty evident of how that game went. It matched up pretty well with how Notre Dame played and getting that 10-0 win. But, talking about a player that really stood out for Notre Dame, and we kept talking about it, and it seemed like we were obsessed with calling his name, but it was just because he had the puck almost all the time during that game, was number 17 of the Notre Dame Hounds, Joby Baumüller. Just looking at Joby in that game, put up a lot of points. It was his first game of the season as well. Just looking back at it, how impressed were you at how Joby Baumüller played in that game for Notre Dame?
Yeah, like I said, he had just came out flying. There was, you had mentioned it during the broadcast that there really was no rust on Joby there. He had been flying. He looks like he was one of the fastest guys out there. He is, for this age group, he is one of the taller guys. He's not the tallest, but he is, kind of right in that murky middle, where he's not gonna get hit big most of the time, but he also didn't look like he was a terribly physical guy himself, kind of right in that middle. And, he really displayed a lot of patience, when he did have time, able to hold on to the puck and, look far side to his D, look cross ice to his other wingerman. He just really was able to hold on to the puck and find open spaces. And if he didn't, uh, he had taken the shot himself and looked for the rebound and managed to capitalize on one of his own rebounds.
Yeah, and I'll try to pronounce his name right here because it's a bit of a tough last name to pronounce. It's Joby Baumüller. Baumüller is how you pronounce it, but Baumüller in that game, what I noticed, Cody, I'll just throw in some of my opinion here, is just the offensive talent was electrifying, the skating, just the vision out there as well, the stick handling, his hands, just unreal, something that I haven't really seen from a kid his age in person, and just that shot as well. A heck of a release from Joby Baumüller there. But looking at Pilot-Mound in that game, it seemed like they were kind of going back to some of those bad habits of forcing passes up the middle, forcing passes up ice, trying to get that stretch pass, but it wasn't quite there. Talk about what you found Pilot-Mound kind of lacked in that game against Notre Dame on Sunday.
One thing in that Sunday night game, I thought they kind of lacked a little bit of discipline. I know we saw Hank Thompson running around. He was definitely a bit fired up. He managed to get double minor in the Sunday night game or Sunday afternoon game, sorry. And really, I thought it looked like they were all kind of gripping their sticks a little too tight, especially because, uh, you know, Notre Dame did get off to a great start, and Pilot-Mound never really was able to, find the same amount of effort level as Notre Dame had.
Yeah, and a lot more shots produced by Notre Dame in that Sunday game. Pete Moreau, of course, like you mentioned before, and like we saw, got the start in that Sunday matchup. Letting in 10 goals, always tough for a goaltender to let in 10 or as many goals as he did, letting up a lot of goals. But talking about what you saw from Pete Moreau's game on Sunday that stood out to you in terms of some of the positives that were there?
One thing that I really stood out to me from Pete was really late in the game. You could see he was still making those acrobatic saves that in a 10-0 game, maybe you don't want to pull a groin, you don't want to overstretch when you're going for a big save like that. But Pete showed that he was not wanting to give up on the game, even though there was under a minute left. Every save that he made was important to him. You could tell that he didn't give up on the game, even though it was out of hand, and that was something I kind of saw out of his character or from his character. That you can see that he's the type of guy that's not gonna give up when the times are tough. And that's really somebody you want to build your team around, somebody that you're going to appreciate having in net, because it's not always going to be doom and gloom like it was on Sunday. There's going to be ups and there's downs in every season. And it's really reassuring to see how, Pete is a guy who's going to push himself to the limit every time. And when you see guys giving it their all, even when it is kind of in the not so fun times, it can show your teammates too that you're really there for the boys, you're really there for the team, and it really just shows your dedication to them.
Yeah, for sure. Just terrific fight, terrific character shown by Pete Moreau in that game. Even though he let in 10 goals, he definitely battled through until the end. Talking about it, we've kind of already talked about a player for Notre Dame that stood out to us, and Joby Baumüller. But talking about Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, you really like Liam Chartrand's game this weekend, like you said. Bo Murray was good, Gage Sutherland, Carson Carrolls. But out of what we saw from Pilot-Mound this weekend, what would you say is probably the player that impressed you the most, a player that had a solid 2 games out there or looked solid throughout the weekend?
Right. I would honestly have to say Liam Chartrand. These prior games I had watched him before this weekend. He had looked good, but really this weekend I saw his compete level out there, and it looks like he was really driving the play. He was throwing his body around. He was going into the corners to pick up pucks, and he was able to really mesh well with the power play and able to, be part of that cycle that Pilot-Mound was quite good on when they did get the man advantage.
For sure. Leaving off with this, Cody, looking at what Pilot-Mound did this weekend, of course, suffering 2 losses, one being a big blowout loss on Sunday. What would you say is going to be the mindset for them heading into this week of practice, getting ready for their next opponent?
Well, one thing that they'll definitely want to do is you'll want to turn the page on yesterday's game, just because you'll want to take out some of the positives you can take. You're going to want to take those out, but you're going to want to quickly forget that the game had ended up like that, because you don't want to dwell on a big number like that and have that in the back of your mind next time you're going out to play, that you guys got they got blown up, or that they got a lot of goals scored on them. Hockey is a game where more so with goaltending, but in a whole team, the confidence is huge, and you don't want to dwell on the bad too long and really wreck your confidence going forward.
Well, Pilot-Mound coming out of this weekend with 2 losses, their record going to 1-5. Of course, Notre Dame improving to 4-4 after the weekend on the season. Cody Wall here on his segment on Coffee with Graeme, Off the Wall with Cody, joining me once again here this week on this Tuesday episode. Cody, you take care. I know that you got work in the morning, got to be up early. You got a good sleep, and we'll see you coming up this weekend, eh?
All right. Thanks for having me on, Graeme, and we'll look forward to another segment next week, and catching up with you this weekend when we're covering the U17s.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait for it, man. You take care. We'll see you soon.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
And Cody Wall joining his segment here on this Tuesday morning, Off the Wall with Cody, talking about the past weekend of games between the Pilot-Mound U15 Male Prep Buffaloes and the Notre Dame Hounds. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk some female hockey. The Western Regional Women's U18 Championships start today. 4 teams participating, 4 provinces in Team Alberta, Team BC, Team Manitoba, who is the host province since it's being played in Portage La Prairie, and Team Saskatchewan. Coming up after the break, Ferdi Nelissen joins the show to break down, what's going to be expected in this tournament, and just talking about the tournament in general. You're watching Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Stick around for more after these commercial breaks.
Welcome to Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot-Mound Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Of course, Cody Wall joined the show first here on a pre-recorded edition. Well, like we always do, a pre-recorded edition of a segment. But he joined the show on Off the Wall with Cody, just talking about the past weekend of games we saw here on the network between the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, U15 Male Prep Buffaloes, and the Notre Dame Hounds. But welcome back to the show, everybody. Hopefully everyone's doing well on this Tuesday morning. The year's chugging along. It's November now, which is crazy. Last time it feels like it just blinked and October was over. It went so fast, but hopefully everyone had a wonderful Halloween. Hopefully everyone stayed safe during the weekend. And yeah, We're going to go into talking about some female hockey now, and a big tournament coming up this week here in Manitoba being played in Portage La Prairie, the Western Regional Women's U18 Championships. And joining me now to talk about it on this Tuesday morning is Ferdi Nelissen. Ferdi is at the arena right now at Stride Place in Portage La Prairie. Ferdi, great to have you on the show here. Excited to talk about this tournament coming up this week with 4 provinces going to be in action, getting the guaranteed 3 games. Well, guaranteed 4 games, 3 round robin, at least a semifinal game as well. But how are things going this morning? What's the hype like in preparation for getting this thing started?
Well, the rink's a little bit quiet right now, but I'm expecting it to get going. The first games are at 1:30 this afternoon, the first matchup. And, we're looking forward to this. It was a real quick turnaround to get this thing here when the U18 Nationals were canceled by Hockey Canada. Like I said, we had a conversation before. Kudos to Peter Woods and Dustin Stewart and Hockey Manitoba for initiating conversations with the other 3 Western branches, and great on the other Western branches for jumping on board and making it available for these young athletes. Otherwise, they would have lost another opportunity to have an interprovincial championship. So this is great. Portage is happy to host it. We have a great facility here, and we think it's going to be an exciting event.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's just great that you guys were able, well, the people involved, Hockey Manitoba, Hockey Canada, just everyone able to get this thing rolling, after that U18 national tournament got canceled. But, talking about it just with such a quick turnaround to getting this event ready and set to go, what's the our organization been like in preparation for this event?
Well, you know what, it's been a little bit challenging, for sure. Thankfully we have some real good people in Portage that have helped me out. We've got most of the volunteer base in place that we need, we'll make it go as the week goes on. But we have a solid base of people that are going to do things for us at the rink. Announcers are in place. We got people working the cameras. We got gate people. It's going to be good. Stride Place has been very accommodating. They got us the ice on such short notice, made adjustments to their ice schedule to bring this event to Portage. So a big thank you to them. We've got a great facility here. We've set it up so that each team has a dressing room for the week. And it's officiating was something we had to get on top of. Peter Woods and the group with Hockey Manitoba. We've got all female crew, 5 from Manitoba, 5 from Saskatchewan. So it's going to be I think it's going to be a great event. These are great young athletes. They're the best in their province at the U18 level.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about that, how important you feel it is to have an all-female officiating crew with this being a female tournament, especially just giving, females who ref an opportunity to, get some exposure.
Well, exactly. I mean, they're not going to improve on their skills if we don't let them take the step to the next level and get some good mentoring and some good opportunities to officiate this caliber, this speed. It's like any other sport. If you're playing 2 levels below or officiating 2 level below all year, it's hard to jump up to that next level unless you're getting those opportunities. So this is a great opportunity for these female officials as well. And part of that is a responsibility we have, not just to bring along the athletes, but to bring along our officials. We can't play the game without good officials.
Yeah, for sure. Officials, play a part like everyone in making this great game of hockey able to happen. And it's great that, you guys the event is giving, female refs an opportunity to get more exposure, to continue developing, getting to ref this high level of hockey that we're going to see, like you said, the best U18s in their respective provinces going at it this week and then into the weekend. But, talking about it, just this opportunity that this gives the players in this tournament to go against the best of the best at the U18 level.
Well, it's an opportunity, obviously, to challenge their skills. I mean, not that their club hockey isn't good hockey; it's very good hockey. You've seen it, AAA, whether it be AAA or sports school hockey. They're good teams, but this is a collection of elite athletes that will compete at the highest level, and are a lot of these players that'll be attending here this week are going to get an opportunity to be scouted by Hockey Canada. Hockey Canada is obviously an event like this where you bring in provincial teams that are going to scout for their U18 national program. So there's going to be 5 Hockey Canada scouts here, which is great for exposure for those players. It gives them an opportunity to get seen by that level, to find out who can move on to that next level. I've already had contact with numerous universities and colleges that are going to watch the event or even attend the event. NCAA programs, U Sport programs have all been in touch. This is an opportunity for them to look at some elite athletes that they might want in their programs and make some contacts.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. A lot of great opportunity in store for these players this weekend, and it's going to be exciting for everyone that's going to be in attendance to watch this. Of course, like we've mentioned, like I've talked about, 4 provinces going to be in action. Team Alberta, Team BC, the host province, of course, Team Manitoba, and Team Saskatchewan. But, looking at it, you said yesterday, I had a chance to talk to you yesterday. You said you've had a chance to watch some teams practice so far. From what you've seen, not much pre-scouting done at all, so obviously going to be tough to really make a judgment call on this. But who would you say is probably the favorite coming into this event?
I don't know if I'd say I know who the favorite is, but I haven't seen Alberta practice. They practiced in Regina yesterday because they had some players that they needed to do some protocol stuff on for COVID because they wouldn't have been eligible to practice here. With our guidelines, but now they've met the requirements to play today, one day with that 14-day for the vaccination stuff. So they're eligible to play today, but they wouldn't have been able to practice here yesterday. So they practiced in Regina. So Alberta's a little bit of an unknown, but BC has skated twice, Manitoba once, and Saskatchewan once. And I would say for me so far, the most impressive team to watch has been BC. Size, speed, they look good. Now, looking good in practice is still one thing, right? But they come in, they have a lot of players to pick from, and Alberta will be similar. I'm assuming that with the numbers they have in their provinces, Saskatchewan and Manitoba both look good in their practices. They've got skill, they've got speed. Probably don't have quite as much size throughout their lineup as BC did, but. The game nowadays, especially on the women's side, is obviously there's going to be puck battles and who wins and loses those, but it's a game of speed and skill. So we'll see how that plays out. I like what the team we've put together for Team Manitoba, and I think they'll be very competitive.
Yeah, and we're going to get into Team Manitoba more in depth in just a bit here. But first off, talking about just the schedule that these teams have had to get prepared, not much turnaround. I mean, with this event being announced on as much short notice as it was. Just speak about how you feel like the challenges that these coaching staffs are going to have to get these players ready to go, and just how the schedule that these players have had preparing for this tournament is going to have an impact this week.
Well, yeah, because normally with your program of excellence, the teams are picked, they get together for a couple weekends, they may play exhibition series, the coaches stay in touch. Well, when this thing was canceled, most programs just were shut down. The players didn't, weren't being given any opportunity. They were just with their club teams. There was no prep, there was no anything going on for them. So all of a sudden now it's back. Well, it's hard enough to coach in a short-term competition. It's way different than coaching your team for 4 or 5 months. You can gradually work on the things you want to work on and get players to where they. This is we were having a conversation about it last night. This is a place where the coaches know or get to know their players and hopefully know their skill sets, and they're gonna let them out the gate. And then if they see some things they might have to correct, they'll try and correct them on the fly. But in all honesty, it's not like you're going to take and change a player's style or change their habits in 5 days. You're going to have to work with it, put them in positions where they can succeed, and make the adjustments as you go. As we were talking about yesterday, I think the coaching staffs here are probably going to look at this and worry more about. A lot of times you pre-scout the other teams. I know when I was with Team Manitoba, we would go down and watch games and pre-scout the games, and you sort of knew well ahead of time who had made each team compared to this year. I think this year they're going to have to really focus on what their strengths are and try to maximize getting the team to that position and using their strengths to the fullest, and maybe not worry so much about the other team. Who's line matching, who's doing this. I think that'll always go on. Coaches can't get away from that. They figure it out, but it's going to be a unique coaching situation for all 4 teams with the way this event cropped up, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Going to be an interesting challenge for these coaches, just with the situation that these teams are going to be put in, especially with it being, you don't have much time to, regroup after, the game, because there's going to be 3 games in a row starting off today. We're going to see all 4 teams in action in all 3 days, of course, this Tuesday, today, tomorrow, and on Thursday.
It is a little bit different in one sense that if it was a full nationals, there'd be 8 teams. You'd play in 2 pools, and then you'd have crossovers. So outside of going to scout the other pool, you'd never played them before. In this situation, when they get to the semifinals, you'll have played that team before.
Right.
So you'll have an idea what their tendencies are and what they do and what their strengths are. So in the semifinals, you may see some coaching adjustments onto how they approach playing that team, because they will have played them once. That's a little bit unique compared to the Canadian, a full-blown U18 nationals.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even think about that. These teams are going to have some familiarity with each other coming into that semifinal matchup already. With who, no matter who they get, they've already played them once before the playoffs. So, going to be interesting to see how this tournament goes. We're going to come back after this next commercial break. This commercial break coming up, and we're going to go more in depth into Team Manitoba, just the roster that they got this year, their coaching staff, and touch on some other teams as well. Not in as much in depth as we're going to do for Team Manitoba, but still touch on them. This is Ferdi Nelissen joining me here on the show, Coffee with Graeme, breaking down this Western Regional Women's U18 Championship. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk more about it here on Coffee with Graeme. Stick with us.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on AETi Productions. Talking to Ferdi Nelissen during this interview in this part of the episode about the Western Regional Women's U18 Championships. Just had a chance to talk to Ferdi before we went to commercial break. In the last segment about just this tournament, the organization for the event, the opportunity it's going to give players in this tournament, and talking about the schedule as well, the challenges for the coaching staffs in this tournament and the teams in general. But we're going to dive more into one team specifically, Team Manitoba, the host team in this tournament. Loads of talent, a lot of speed, a good skilled roster that Manitoba has put together. Talking about it, how pleased that you think this coaching staff is with, just the players that they selected, because this is a talent chock full of talent.
Yeah, that's probably a better question to ask them in 5 days, but I think we came out of the summer camp, because this was a different year again on how we selected the girls, because nobody played last year per se, and we couldn't run a 68 camp, our spring camp, and so we sat down and went over the lists we had. I was included in that because I scout for them, and we just came up with what we thought were 40 players. We had 44 counting goalies at a summer camp, and mini teams, and they played mini games, and we evaluated and came away with the roster we have, and we think we've got the best team that we could ice. There's always going to be debates over one or two players, but we like the depth of the team. We like our decor. We think we've got lots of speed up front, and some skilled kids that can put the puck in the net. And our two goalies were arguably the two best there. They're having good seasons with their club teams.
Yeah, let's talk about just the places where these players are coming from. 11 players from the MFHL made the roster, 5 from prep programs, and 4 from the CSSHL. With you being involved with the MFHL, with you having some history of coaching that in that league for a number of years, with you still being involved in it, just must be nice to see that is seeing the majority of the players coming from that league. Nice to know that the MFHL is continuing to do the right things and producing some of the top talent here in Manitoba for hockey and women's hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's people choose to play hockey where they choose to play hockey. You just hope that whatever program they get into has the right coaching. Coaching's so important to get players to the next level. We talk about the players' skills all the time, but if you have good coaching in any program, that's what's probably going to help your players the most. If they're well coached and the coaches have the ability to take them and improve their skills both individually and team-wise, that's the key to getting players to another level. And I think the entire group we're looking at all come from very well coached programs, whether it be the Manitoba Female Hockey League, or whether it be the sports schools, or whether it be whichever programs they come from. These are all highly certified coaches who are there for the right reasons to hope to move the girls on to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. And diving into the forward group, loads of talent up front, speed, skill, like you've already mentioned, and we've already touched on a bit. But looking at some of the notable players from the MFHL, Abby Bordadui coming in, leads the MFHL in points right now with 12. You got Maya Eamon and Courtney Bays, some other great players too, of course, outside from the MFHL. But looking at how this forward group is going to want to play, you feel like they're going to go and match up with their strengths out there. This is going to be a skilled and a fast forward group that we're going to see from Team Manitoba.
This group, I think, is going to be very hard on the forecheck. They're going to be quick on the puck. At the camp, there, you had Ocean Asham and the Balmoral girls they kept them together, Dana Gortson and Carrie Ackle, so they have some familiarity, right? They're all skilled players. They all work the puck well. They protect the puck well. They have the ability to put it in. They had Bordeaux Abbey with Danica Botterill at the camp. And those two were like lightning. They were really good. And I'm not sure who the coaches have flipped onto the wing with them. A young player that had an outstanding camp, in my opinion, was Morgan Smith. She's actually a U15, and she was tremendous. She can put the puck in the net. She's got quite the shot. So there's some the coaching staff is probably, they had their lines out yesterday together. I didn't really pay that much. I was watching the practice. I wasn't really, I was busy with some other stuff. But the stuff I watched, they were moving the puck. They were doing drills that made them work together. And so the forward group will, you've got, like you said, you brought up Courtney Bays, and I'm thinking they're probably going to hook her up with Nora Collins, right?
Yeah,
because they're teammates. They play together. Those are things that coaching staffs are going to look at. And I know during the summer, I think Neil Chow, who's the head coach, he's got a lot of unique ideas. I think Neil is a really creative coach, and he sent out a little survey, I think, to the players to ask them who they'd played with before and who they liked playing with if they had played with somebody before. Sometimes you have a natural click, even if you don't play with that person on your club team. You've played some spring, summer, or some competitive other hockey together.
Yeah.
Those are things you got to find, those mixes, because in all fairness here, you can't keep. You've got 5 days. You keep throwing stuff in during the season, the regular season. If a line's not working after 2 weeks, well, maybe lines aren't working. You might throw it into the blender as a coach because you've got 4 months to figure it out. Here, throwing stuff into the blender every day is probably just going to create confusion for the players. They're just going to be with somebody different all the time. I think they're going to have to work through it and figure it out. And the fact that they do have familiarity with at least some players already, that's going to help them.
Yeah, for sure. Just great on Neil Chow for, doing that, asking players who they'd feel comfortable playing with, because like you said, and like we've already mentioned, not much turnaround in this tournament. You only got 5 days compared to, what a regular season team would have, a lot more time to figure it out. Talking about this back end now, McKenna Beard and Louise Ferguson, top 2 in points, and terms of defensemen in the MFHL right now, a lot more other talent on that back end besides them. But this, looking at it, the talent on paper, loaded back end as well as their forwards, just on their back end this time, with lots of talent for Manitoba.
Well, I think you've got a group here that not only can defend, they're willing to jump in offensively and support offensively, and they have offensive skills. You brought up Beard and Ferguson, but Presley Giesbrecht is a very offensive-minded defenseman and very solid back there. Quinn McLaren from Pembina Valley, size, strength, going to play Division I hockey next year down in the States, NCAA. Avery Pickering, one of the youngest on the team, is got tremendous skills, both defensively and offensively. Glory Plett and Ali Staples, both good skaters. Both, he went with 7D. One of them was sort of injured during the camp, but a lot of coaches go with 11 and 7. And how he works that. Neil's coached in all different situations, and I know he can handle whether it be 12 and 6 or 11 and 7. He'll have a plan, and I agree. I think this is a great decor. I think it's one of the best we've had in about 4 or 5 years when it comes to depth. They can all skate. There's a little bit of size there. They've all got some offensive abilities. They defend well. They move. For me, it's always important, being a former defenseman, and that what they do with the puck, their first touches and their decisions in their own end. You can jump into the play, but if you can't get it out of your own end, you'll never be able to jump into the play. So, and this group is very good. Or has shown that over the past, that they're very good at moving the puck, whether it be by carrying it for a certain amount of time and then moving it, or moving it right away with good solid first passes. they make positive decisions, and that's very important in your own end so that you don't get stuck down there against a team like BC or Alberta or Saskatchewan. These top teams, these top players, you give those kind of forwards that second, third chance because you can't get out of your own end, bad things will happen. I think this group is capable of handling that.
Yeah, and like we've mentioned before, like you mentioned before, the goaltenders, two strong goaltenders, Grace Glover from the Westman Wildcats and the MFHL, and Sydney McMullen from the Yellowhead Chiefs. Both have had really strong starts to their season. They're among the best goaltenders in the league at this point. Having both of them to back up this decor and back up this team with this team playing in front of them must have a lot. This team must have a lot of confidence in these two goaltenders heading into this tournament.
Well, yeah, I would think so. I mean, they're both good goalies. I mean, they the key is stopping that first shot for sure, and they're both fairly athletic. They can make a second save, which is, critical. However, at this level, hopefully if you make a good first save, you're going to get the support you need from the rest of your team. You don't want to be making second, third saves all the time, but they're very capable. They had good camps. They've had good starts to the season. Like you say, their stats in the league are very in the top third of the league for sure. And the one thing is that, one is a graduating player and one's got another year to come back. So they sort of, I don't think that came into play when we made the decisions. I think, Gord Woodall is the goalie coach, and Gord knows his stuff. That's why Hockey Canada has him as a goalie coach in their programs. And we were talking last night, and he truly believes we picked the two best goalies in the province based on the camp and what was going on and what he's seen and what we've seen. There's obviously other good goalies in Manitoba. There's no doubt about that. And there's some, this is not to knock any of the other goalies, because there was two or three other goalies there and they all had good camps. But we think we've got the best pair this year that we could we can ice on for this event.
Yeah, and like we've said, those two goaltenders having great starts to their season, and Team Manitoba going to be very confident, I feel like, with whoever goes in net, whether it being they roll with Sydney or Grace. Going to be a fantastic opportunity for both of those goaltenders to get some action in this tournament. Talking about the coaching staff, headlined by Neil Chow, the head coach. Of course, he talked about Gord Woodall, but talking about this coaching staff in general, just the coaching staff that Team Manitoba selected for this tournament.
Well, Neil is a veteran coach. He's coached in many of these events. Neil has been, I was with Neil in Calgary when we were with the U18 female program. He's coached on the male side. He's very knowledgeable. He's a student of the game. Neil is, when I took my HP1, Neil was my coach evaluator. Neil mentors. He's a really good high-end coach in Manitoba. We're lucky to have him. Gord is an outstanding goalie coach. Alana Sherhan and Jessica Kaminsky are two young female coaches that we think, they've both coached. Jessica's still with the Winnipeg Ice, and Alana's, I'm not sure where she's coaching club this year. I don't think it's in Manitoba, but they both played college hockey. They both understand the game. Neither one of them is afraid to express their opinions, which is good. You don't want assistant coaches that are just going to sit there and, if you have something to offer it. Be vocal. Open discussion between the coaching staff is only going to lead to positives, in my opinion. Even if you disagree, things can be worked out. But having different perspectives, and neither one of them is afraid to share it. And they have a wealth of experience. Jessica played NCAA. Alana was with the Bisons when they won their national championship. These are quality. They were quality athletes, and I think they're turning into quality coaches. And this is a great opportunity for them to be mentored by a very good coach.
Yeah, for sure. Getting that opportunity to be mentored by a guy like Neil Chow, who you've had nothing but praise for him. Of course, him being around for a very long time, having a lot of experience.
I don't want to make it sound like he's really old.
Oh, yeah. That's good call there, Ferdi. Good call. But yeah, great opportunity for all the coaches on Team Manitoba staff to be able to have an opportunity to coach in this tournament. Let's dive into some of the other teams. Not going to go as much in depth into these three other provinces, but Team Saskatchewan coming in, most notable players for me on that roster. When I looked at just the stats, Alexis Pletford, 19 points in 7 games so far in the Saskatchewan female U18 AAA Hockey League, and Ali Gerard, 16 points in 7 games as well, and they got a lot of other talent up front as well. But looking at this team in general, Team Saskatchewan, you've already touched on what you've seen from what their strengths could be from what you've seen in practice. Dive a bit more into what you feel like we will be expecting from a Team Saskatchewan team this time around in this tournament.
Well, the one thing I've always noticed about Saskatchewan at these events is they're always very physical. They play an aggressive style. They'll be hard on the puck. Some people think they may carry it a little bit, the physicality a little far. There's no carrying physicality too far. Until an arm goes up and a whistle blows, you're physical on the puck. It's a physical game, the female game, and people think that it isn't, but it is, and a lot of it's well within the rules. I mean, if there's a penalty, it's a penalty, but they're going to play hard on the puck, and they'll have some skill and speed. Most of the girls from Saskatchewan, I think, come out of their AAA league, and the one thing you got to remember about their AAA league, there's only 7 teams in that league in Saskatchewan, and there's no other programs. So the best players, unless they leave the province, which not a lot of them do anymore for Saskatchewan, are all in that league. So that's an incredibly competitive league. They're playing tough hockey all the time, and physical hockey. So I expect them to be physical for sure. They will obviously have skill. They're the elite kids from Saskatchewan, and I'm not sure about their speed. I watched them yesterday. They didn't seem to have the same kind of speed that BC did in their practice. But it's also first practice and getting your legs under you, and depending on what kind of drills you're running, whether you really can see the speed. Some practices yesterday were a little bit more technical than they were. Like the BC coach runs high-end speed drills. Saskatchewan looked like they were going over a little bit more technical stuff, and then they did have some other drills. But I think they won't be quite as fast as BC or maybe Alberta. But the one thing about Saskatchewan is they're going to come and they're going to play you through the wall.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what this Team Saskatchewan team is going to be able to do. Of course, it's going to be a physical team, like you said. But talking about it, just the Saskatchewan female U18 AAA Hockey League, 15 players on Saskatchewan's roster, coming from there, 4 from the CSSHL. And even on Alberta, there's 3 players from the Saskatchewan female U18 AAA Hockey League on that roster. Just talking about Alberta, like you said, you haven't had a chance to watch them practice yet, but just from what you've seen from Team Alberta teams in the past, what do you think that we could be expecting from Alberta in this tournament?
Well, I would expect them to be fast. If you look at their roster, you can see they actually have quite a few small players up front. They're 5 feet, 5'1", 5'2", 5'4", 5'2". Like, I guarantee you they're going to be fast. Alberta teams in the past have come with speed and skill, and when you're averaging about 5'3" up front, you better have speed and skill. And I'm not saying they're going to be weak, because just because you're 5'3" doesn't mean you're not strong. And they'll be hard on the puck, but they come. I guarantee you they'll have speed. That's what I expect from them, and I think we'll see that. The Alberta AAA League, St. Albert and Red Deer, and the league they have out there, there's only 6 AAA teams in that league. So those teams load up with a lot of skill and speed. They have a lot more sports schools in Alberta than we do. When we have enough, but they have a lot, and so and they're all well coached, and I truly believe that they will be fast, very fast.
Yeah, and speaking about sports schools, a lot of sports schools, more opportunity out there. Like obviously Manitoba having some opportunity with some sports schools out here. Of course, Saskatchewan as well. But BC, their roster consists of 12 players from CSSHL. Ferdy's a busy guy, someone
Yeah.
talk to him. But talking about BC, 12 players from the CSSHL. 6 players from the BC EHL, and 3 players from the Saskatchewan female U18 AAA hockey. Nope, not my apologies. That was for Alberta, but a lot of sports school talent on this team. This
In BC, oh yeah,
BC.
yeah. That's a big part of it. They only got 5 teams in their AAA league, and there's a few players from the AAA league, and it's so a lot of their players end up at a sports school. And that's in that kind of system in that province. So they're going to be well coached. I've watched them practice now twice. When you look at their roster, and they do have some smaller forwards up front, but some of their forwards are 5'7", 5'8", 5'7", 5'7", 5'7". That's a little bit bigger than Alberta, BC. They do have 5, but their defense is 5'9", 5'10", 5'9", 5'8", 5'9". That's a big team for female hockey. But when I watched them, a lot of times people will assume that means, okay, maybe not quite as fast. Their practices, the 2 practices I watched, they had lots of speed, lots of size and speed. So they'll be a tough team to play against. When you can combine size and speed, that's a great combination for a coach to work with. Hopefully they have the skill to go with it, which obviously they're elite players if they're here. So I think BC will be a tough team for the other 3 branches to match up with when it comes to that size.
Yeah, and BC opening up their tournament, of course, today, later on in the day, the second game of the day against Team Manitoba at 6:30 p.m. Talking about that game, going to be a good one to open things up for Team Manitoba. Getting an early test against, like you said, a physical, a big team, and a team that you expect to have some speed in BC.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a great test out of the gate for Team Manitoba. They're going to have to have their A game going. BC's looks like they're pumped to be here. They're very excited. I've talked to them quite a bit since they got here. They arrived. They're the first team to arrive, actually, and so they skated the first night they got here. They skated and they traveled for close to 16 hours, and they still had to skate. So and then they skated again yesterday. They're keen and they're excited to be here, and obviously their goal is to win it, and so Manitoba is going to have to be prepared tonight. I think the girls are. I think all 4 teams are excited to be here, extremely excited, because they all thought they'd lost everything, right? They thought when the U18s were canceled, they thought they were going to get nothing, and that's why it was such a great thing for Peter Woods, Dustin Stewart, Hockey Manitoba, and the other branches to get together, get together with Hockey Canada, and get the financial support of Hockey Canada to run this event. Because if we didn't get the financial support from Hockey Canada, if Peter hadn't secured that, I don't think we could have run this. Nobody was going to spend the money that it would have taken to run this without Hockey Canada's support. So good on them for stepping up as well.
No doubt. Great job by Hockey Canada, Hockey Manitoba for putting this event together, of course, on such short notice after that U18 national tournament was canceled, and going to be a fantastic opportunity for these players, not only to go up against each other, the best U18s in the province, or in these 4 provinces for these teams, but as well for these scouts and just for the fans in attendance to see it as well. Ferdi Nelissen joining me here on the show, talking about the Western Regional U18 championships, the women's championships here on Coffee with Graeme. Ferdi, enjoy the week. Enjoy watching these teams in action, and we'll talk in the future again.
Well, thanks for having me. And if people are out there and they got nothing to do, come on out to Stride Place in Portage and watch some of the best young female hockey players in Western Canada. I encourage it.
Yeah, you guys could be in for a treat. Listen to Ferdi. He's been around. He knows what he's talking about. Ferdi, you take care. We'll
you
talk,
too. Thanks for having me, Graeme.
Yeah, no problem. And Ferdi Nelissen joining the show here on this Tuesday morning to talk about the Western Regional Women's U18 Championships. Always seem to have trouble pronouncing the full name of what this tournament is called, but going to be awesome for everyone involved. Like I said, like Ferdi said, if you have an opportunity to come out and watch it, if you're in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba, be sure to do that because it's going to be a fantastic tournament. Honestly, you know, any of these four teams could win. Just looking at the talent on their rosters, hoping for Manitoba to win. Of course, that's a bit biased because I'm from Winnipeg, but would love to see this Manitoba team come together and take home the gold in this tournament. Let's talk about the schedule of this tournament just to fill you guys in for each of these four teams. Starting off with Team Alberta, they are going to play in the first game today of the tournament to kick things off against Team Saskatchewan. That game coming up 1:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That's Manitoba time. And then Team Alberta in action on Wednesday in the later game at 6:30 against Team Manitoba, and then they finish off their round robin play on Thursday against Team BC in the early game that day at 1:30. Team BC, of course, opening up their tournament tonight against Team Manitoba, who is the host team, at 6:30. Tomorrow they'll get Team Saskatchewan in the early game at 1:30, and then they, of course, play Team Alberta at 1:30 on Thursday. For Team Manitoba, the host province in this tournament, going to be taking on Team BC tonight, and then they'll be taking on Team Alberta tomorrow night as well at 6:30, and Team Saskatchewan will be the last team on their schedule, 6:30 p.m. as well on Thursday. So no early games for Manitoba. I guess they're all in the primetime slots, which is going to be nice for fans to have some time to go out and see Team Manitoba play if you're from Manitoba and watching this tournament. And moving on to Team Saskatchewan, the last team that I haven't mentioned, their schedule, of course, opening up their tournament today in the early game against Team Alberta. And then Team BC, they'll play them tomorrow at 1:30, and then, of course, finishing off their round-robin play on Thursday at 6:30 against Team Manitoba. Just looking at how this tournament works, already mentioned before, but I'll mention it again. Each team is going to get 3 round-robin games from today all the way up to Thursday. 2 games per day, of course. Each team will be making playoffs. The 1 seed will play the 4 seed. Once round robin concludes, the standings are set in stone for how the round robin played out. The 1 seed will get the 4 seed. The 2 seed will play the 3 seed. The winners go to the finals with an opportunity to play for gold and win the tournament, and the losers will play for bronze. So going to be exciting. This tournament goes all the way until November 6th, I'm pretty sure. So going to be a busy 5 days for these 4 teams coming up here in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba for this Western Regional Women's U18 Championship. Going to be a lot of fun for everyone in attendance to watch. But we're going to take a commercial break now. We're going to see 2 commercials to end off this episode. Well, not to end off this episode, because I'll be back after the last set of commercials, the last couple of commercials, to give some final words on this edition of Coffee with Graeme on AETi Productions. We'll be back in just a moment for some final words here on today's episode. Welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. This is going to mark the end of today's episode. I want to start off this last segment this last part of the episode by thanking the guests in today's episode for coming on. Of course, Cody Wall on Off the Wall with Cody joined the show last night in a pre-recorded segment. We aired that at the start of the show in the first interview, I guess, the first segment of this episode. Special thanks to Cody for coming on. He'll be on again next Tuesday. We're going to have a busy weekend on the network, so going to be a lot of games to break down next week on Off the Wall with Cody. Stay tuned for what those matchups will be that we'll be covering on ASTV Productions. I'll be announcing those on Thursday. You guys can also check us out on social media to find out, which teams will be in action. You guys don't have to wait for me to tell you guys if you want to do that. But also a special thanks to Ferdi Nelissen for coming on as well, talking about the Western Regional Women's U18 Championship. Of course, that first game of the tournament, it's kicking off today at Stride Place in Portage La Prairie between Team Saskatchewan and Team Alberta. Like I said before I went to commercial break, going to be a great tournament for people to tune in and watch if you're in Stride Place or if you're in Portage La Prairie and you go to Stride Place. But yeah, special thanks to our sponsors as well here on Coffee with Graeme for sponsoring today's episode, and Evolve Green, AETi, TOVI Hockey, Caisse Financial Group, and our good friends over at Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, and as well as special thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning in on this Tuesday morning or whenever you watch this episode. For Coffee with Graeme, we're going to be putting out another episode, of course, on Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. You guys can catch that episode on our Facebook, ASTV Productions, on our website, astvproductions.com. And if we do go live for that episode on Amateur Sports TV on Twitter as well, tonight an edition of the Prospect Show is going to be coming out. Was supposed to have that episode up yesterday, but ran into some technical difficulties. So going to be talking about some shooting stuff, some shooting in hockey with Trevor Lackness, co-founder of TS Hockey Shooting. That's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time on the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions on Facebook and on our website at astvproductions.com. Rise and Shine Manitoba, one of the other shows that I host here on the network, is coming out tomorrow. Manitoba's show airing at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Going to have a loaded lineup of guests in that episode, and also my segment on the network, on that show on Rise and Shine Manitoba at the end, Graeme's Opinion, where it's a segment where I give my opinion on stuff in sports and anything else I want to talk about. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week here on the network. It doesn't stop. The grind doesn't stop. We're going to be seeing you guys here on Coffee with Graeme again on Thursday night. Stay tuned for the guest list on our social media before that episode airs. We're going to be putting out the guest list on either Thursday morning or sometime on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. You guys can see who the guests will be on our Facebook, on our Instagram at ASTV Productions, or on our Twitter. But until then, folks, until Thursday, I'll see you then. Graeme Forsyth of Coffee with Graeme, host of Coffee with Graeme, signing off now. Until Thursday night, folks, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Stay safe out there. And until Thursday night, we'll see you then. Peace, everyone.